Boo! And welcome to another sesh from the old Wise Asylum. Well, I have to be honest, I've not really done much this week or anything to prepare, but I did find something earlier this evening that will interest us because it's all about, are we actually using the internet as was? Or are we all in this manipulated CGI bot censorship full control paradigm we call the internet? We used to call it Internet 2, which is what they used to promote about 15 years ago. We knew about that, and we didn't understand how they were going to do it. The guys of the day used to say, the engineers, you can't kill the internet. So then we would be considering the real internet still exists, it's out there, but it's been classed as the dark web. And of course, everything that we're getting today is being filtered via the search engines, i.e. Google, the Smoogle, the big boys. So that's the sort of topic that I picked up earlier, and I thought, well, it's interesting, let's bang on it, because I'm pretty shit. I've been grafting all week, so I was too knackered to do any kind of reading and studying. But also we can have a bit of a Q&A if you want, because we've talked about some right garbage, haven't we, the last few months. To be honest, I'm sure some of you have got some questions that you might want answering on some of them subjects. So we can do a Q&A as well, which is no problem. But this is quite interesting, believe it or not, because you get some interesting data about what's happening in different times as the internet's moved on, especially you could say from like 2010. Big changes, and it made sense as well to me, because just because I've been on the internet since 2007, I have actually seen a lot of this stuff go ahead, even though perhaps at the time I didn't understand what was actually going on. But you know, I got kicked off YouTube completely, blocked out of all my Google accounts for 5 years. And with what I've just looked at today, that would make sense in relation to what would be launched in these particular time frames that I can sort of recognise that things were going on. But it's really rather sinister if what's being suggested is actually going on, because you can't trust anything out there on the internet, because you can't trust subscriptions on YouTube. Let's take YouTube for instance. You can't trust the amount of subscriptions. You can't trust the upvotes and downvotes. You can't trust the comments, as in they're the only ones that have been afforded to that channel, or that there are tons and tons and tons of subscriptions, activities that are not actually real. It's bots. And that makes sense as well, doesn't it? You know, we all can see some guys out there, they come on, boom, boom, all of a sudden, bang, 45 million subscribers and such. So it's interesting to look at it that way, because it's quite real, but you can't trust anything. And I have to say, my experience in YouTube since I got back on is in support of that. I have to say. So we'll have a look at that. It's interesting. And we should be screaming blue murder if it is the case that the real internet, as was, is still there, but you can't access it because the search engines are not bringing it to you, which is rather sad, isn't it? Then you can just absolutely no freedom whatsoever, even in that realm. It also SCL is a big part of this, the SCL group, which of course gave us Cambridge Analytica. And Cambridge Analytica involved in many, many things, of data collection especially. But more importantly, it was the main force with also Renaissance Technologies of Robert Mercer fame. So this is Steve Bannon, all this crew. They were the ones responsible for ensuring that Trump's failing campaign back in 2016 just took a major jump, and all of a sudden he were on track, everything were going well, other candidates were falling, etc., etc., and the Trump train really took off. Because, as I've discussed before, in the collection of data they've been doing since, let's say, 2010, but probably before, through Facebook and all the social media that was, they were picking out key phrases used by Americans in the general chit-chat. Or as I call it, the grapevine, as was now transferred to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok and the rest. So they've captured the actual grapevine, but that worked for them in relation to them picking up the key phrases and words, the intentions of what real Americans were talking about all the time across the internet. And of course, Make America Great Again was the leading idea, feelings that the Americans actually wanted. So, of course, Cambridge Analytica, Renaissance Technologies, gave them to the Don Trumpo, and away he went. So that just really does show, doesn't it, the power of data collection and why it's so important for them. They make all the money on it by selling your information. And of course, we cry about it. Well, I don't really cry about it because it's in the terms and conditions. So if you're not happy with that, you shouldn't really be signing up onto any of these platforms. If you don't actually care, because you know that money's free, not real anyway, and you don't own any, it's not your face on it, etc., etc., then it's not even really worth getting bothered about the fact that they're making money on it. The privacy side of it isn't really good, and I found that out to my cost in 2014 when I got set up by the police, and the Telegraph actually took images of me working off my face ache and plastered it all over the front page of the Observer and Telegraph to make me look just a little bit less fantastic and amazing than I actually am. So it was quite disgusting. Well, I cried about it for about 5 minutes and I really didn't care. So it's not really worth getting excited about, but it is important that we understand that the internet that was isn't the internet that is, i.e. that's available to us. So anyway, that's that. We'll have a gander at that, and it is interesting because I was quite intrigued. Who's here? Who's come to join us at the Wise Asylum? Public notice says, ta-da. So I'm taking it you're off. The old China, he's gone. Paul Sefton says, good evening, Sean and everyone. Good evening to you, Paul. PY Music. Oh, where have you been? And where have you been? I've noted. Dossin Owen. Oh. Cos says, 1973 Audi. And I think we've got a fish. Giving it large with the old gob. Am I spitting? Is that what you're trying to tell me? I'm spitting. Steelic1 says, you're Steelic. Solvimus says, I to thee. And Mupit says, hello, what we got here then? And he's crying emoji of laughter. And June says, good evening all, and thumbs up. And P, oh, you've been on holiday? Well, where have you been? Oh, no then. Oh, I thought you'd be quiet. Thought he's either run off or he's joined a band. That was me first. I thought, like, he's gone. He's off again. He's off again being a rock and roll star. Is that what you're up to? But no, it's holidays. Where have you been? Not Blackpool. Right, so there's not that many wanting to chit chat, but never mind. So let's have a little gander at this. It's quite interesting. Oh, do you know what I haven't even done? I'm so thick. I haven't even set this up. So my apologies. Well, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't be the same, would it, if I weren't cocking it up somewhere, like. Let's be honest. Now then. There we go. And we transition that over. There we go. Now then, I don't know whether you remember a few weeks ago I was saying that before Facebook and all these things became as popular as they actually are today, most information, or people just wanted to chat, rather, which created lots and lots of information, there were always forums. Everybody had forums where everybody could come in, put their piece, but you could have chats with people. You could chat to each other on your own. You could do private messages, etc. It was a better version of Facebook. Of course, it didn't have all the fancy stuff that Facebook has, but if you actually look at where Facebook is today and these other operations that are censoring you to death, if we were to go back to forums, we wouldn't actually be lacking any capacities that they've now switched off on the Facebook and these other platforms. So in essence, if you want to gain control again of your own data, your own internet usage, etc., and same, you can decide who you want to talk to and be friends with, this is a really good time for people, any of you out there that are webmasters or using these platforms, to consider, let's rebrand and bring back the humble forum. Because honestly, in all reality, today these forums are giving you everything that Facebook gives you. Because, you know, to get everybody on, they gave you all sorts of abilities. You could do all sorts on these platforms, but slowly but surely they've took them off. But more importantly now, they're dictating what you can and can't say. So it may be perfect timing for us to go back to forums in order to collect data, put out data, rather than putting it out on Facebook and all these platforms that don't really want it on there anyway, because they've made agreements with this WEF. So that might be exactly where, I've said this to you before, I'm really considering at some point this year doing just that. But it might be a good idea for everybody now that's involved in this alternative media side to actually consider setting up a forum for yourself. Because if you're running a website, it's no different to run a forum. You just need a server and away you go. And again, you know, there's not much going to be you can't do on these forums that you can't do on Facebook. So this is a forum. This is data that's been put together on a forum. It's called Agora's Roads Macintosh Cafe. Enjoy the best kept secret of the internet. Now, it goes. Dead internet theory. Most of the internet is fake. So this will be gone on the January 5th, 2021. And the thread has been viewed 27,600, no, 2,766, I don't know. It's a big number, alright? Anyway, there you go. So, this was theory originally written by several Anons on X and Wizard Chain, or Chan. So, it looks like they've captured an older forum and represented it. We're living in the 90s, it says. It says large proportions of the supposedly human-produced content on the internet are actually generated by artificial intelligence networks in conjunction with paid secret media influencers in order to manufacture consumers for an increasing range of newly normalised cultural products. So Alex Jones, Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, all these fruit bats is exactly what he's talking about when he says paid secret media influencers, yeah, who have got 40 gazillion subscribers, have they not? Facebook, all these platforms push them everywhere, regardless of what they're speaking about. They get pushed on these platforms. They're always coming up in your Facebook thing, aren't they? If you're watching that. So that's what they're talking about by artificial intelligence networks in conjunction with paid secret media influencers. So that would suggest what's being said there, that the AI is creating these new cultural products and ideas and paradigms for you to think within. So they're pulling off what you know, but guiding you off on another path. And they're being paid to influence you as though they're on their own, they're doing it themselves, and you should trust them. It's a like to talk, or rather tell you about certain suspicions, hunches and experiences I've had, and I'm sure some of you as well. Similar things have been written about across image boards and quite a few times, so I know I'm not alone in this. My background is that of an old fag. I've seen it all. I started going on 4chan in 2006 and followed all the natural roads this implies. I'm in my 30s, and I remember when 4chan had an I board. When CO was a trial board shunned by basically everyone. When 34 porn was an obscure interest and very few good artists. 34 porn was an obscure interest with very few good artists, and when Moot changed the front page to that Web 2 bullshit, 4chan as to this very day. It's badly written. My apologies. Well, I have to apologise because I didn't write it. I was also among the first right-wingers who were such before it was cool. And I've seen Paul rise and fall. I was there when it mattered. But rather than saying these things out of masturbatory pleasure, I wish to stress that I have acquired a set of observational skills which other genuine old fags share. I'm aware you have no reason to trust my credentials, but I hope you'll read this in good faith. So when did he come on? 2006. So about the same time I went on, 2007. So I am then classed as an old. Well, I'm not going to call myself a fag unless he's talking about it in another format as to we understand it. Anyway. Much of this falls squarely in the fringe territory, with a healthy dosage of X and conspiracy theory up the ass. My goal by posting this seemingly jumbled mess is to, how can I put it? I want you to think. I want you to be aware, to digest all this. Because on a basic level, I love you all. I feel like we're all in this together, this dangerous game we did not choose to play, and which I think is kicking into a higher gear. I do not hold many answers, and I don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, but I am aware there is a puzzle. Please feel free to go wild with all of this. Post it wherever you want, on whatever site you want or use. I am a nobody like you, and what matters to me is only that this reaches you, as many people as possible. But worse, you'll be entertained or kill time. I try to break this mess into points for brevity, and because I touch upon many subjects, I imply more than I explain, because if I go too deep, this will turn into an even bigger wall of text. The internet feels empty and devoid of people. It's also devoid of content, compared to the internet of, say, 2007 and beyond. I agree with that. The internet of today is entirely sterile. There is nowhere to go and nothing to do, see, read or experience anymore. It all imploded into a handful of normal fag sites and these empty husks we inhabit. Yes, the internet may seem gigantic, but it's like a hot air balloon with nothing inside. Some of this is absolutely the fault of corporations and government entities. However, that doesn't explain the following. I used to be in perpetual contact with a solid number of people across multiple sites. Across the years, each and every one of them vanished without a trace. Well, I did. I got knocked off in 2014. Everything went haywire. They give us a good idea and launched Flat Earth. And lots of the, as he's saying, influencers of the day that were getting stuck in properly because they were seeking it out themselves, not searching for other people's opinions. So many of them just disappeared and took up this Flat Earth nonsense. And they were never seen again until they started pushing out with this Flat Earth. So where are we at? Across the years, each and every one of them vanished without a trace. None of them were into Paul's stuff or anything, even remotely questionable or controversial. Yet they all simply vanished in a puff of smoke. No matter the site, no matter the communication platform, there was no goodbye or explanation. Well, that's exactly what happened with me. It just got boomf, quashed, gone. So, and that's the in private as well. I lost my house, everything. Anyway, But that with that, they were reaching a lot of people like that then, that weren't penned in and they couldn't control. And people like me who went into all the parties and wrecked the scripts all the time because my history were good. He said, I've seen the same threads, the same pics, the same replies reposted over across the years to the point of me seeing it as unremarkable. Simply put, a thread would be posted in, say, 2015 and won't get its share of replies or pics on, say, CO or A. Now, I'm not sure what these codes are. Then that very same thread with the same text, pics and replies would appear in 2016 and beyond. This often happens in the same year multiple times as well. Of course, Paul is getting shilled and bot posted to death. But why recycle a completely innocent thread? Who is doing this and why? Stuff like this won't be noticed by your average poster, perhaps, but I and other old fags will inevitably notice it. I think I saw the same happen on other non-image board sites, but I can't vouch for it as strongly as the above because at the time I spent there, not much. What I do vouch for is the news. I've seen news about this or that new and unusual or shocking event year after year after year, but it's the same goddamn event, usually moons or asteroids. Roughly in 2016, yeah, that's true. We could say that from 2015 they've moved everything into doom and gloom, and it's all the world's gonna blow up, and blah blah blah. But like alien asteroid, that kind of geezer. But of course, physically they've done the juice up, haven't they? So they have actually kept you out there looking at the sky while they stab you. So makes sense to me. So that's basically they're changing the way you think, innit, completely. And the internet now is no better than the TV, unless of course you come into genuine researchers who are publishing the works themselves. It's the only way you're going to come across good, real stuff. And I mean, my site, I've pulled through a lot of stuff that I was creating between 2008 and let's say 2013. A lot of the profiles and a lot of the data that I'd studied in the day are up on there. But not everything that I did back then have I reintroduced, because in a lot of cases it's a done deal, and when you're actually reporting on things as they're building and as they're happening, it's more important than for a lot of the stuff I've got still copied and on file. It wouldn't really be doing anything about me going, I'm a clever clod, good luck, I were telling you all about it as it were happening. But it's a done deal, so much of what I've done is pointless. It's pointless putting it up. Because it's there, it's embedded, and it's a done deal and moved on. But back in the day, everybody were trying their best to unpin the bullshit that were coming out of all these paid media influencers like UK Column, GB News, all these little offshoots, that they're pushing out there. They're fully paid up influencers. And look at what's just happened to one of the biggest shits, Nigel Farage. I mean, come on. If that's not to frighten the living daylights out of you, a guy at Nigel Farage's level understands how to protect his wealth. Make no mistake about it. So this is just another there to attack you, middle class, that is still infantile and dependent. You'll only watch something if he's got a suit on, it's got the right background, blah de blah. Because of course you're so addicted to the TV, it has to at least look like the TV. Because on the one hand, the TV's full of shit, but yet you'll only listen to something that's giving you that impression that it's of that same shite. That's your conundrum. There's nothing I can do for you. You just got to carry on. But, they're the influencers. They're the ones that are pulling you into this web of nonsense. It's quite sad, really. But that people like Brian Garish have done a perfect job at grabbing the attention of you middle class. And it's, from my perch, it's quite ridiculous that you've gone through what you've just gone through. So even if you weren't aware of any of this kind of what we call alternative knowledge, you've just gone through the biggest garbage scam you've ever imagined, and still you can't deprogram that subconscious need you have that you will only accept data if it comes through a format that you accept. I mean, it's so abusable. Once they've got you caught in that paradigm, that's such a narrow tunnel of vision that you've got, you're so easy. You're so easy to play off, it's quite ridiculous. It says roughly in 2016 or early 2017, 4chan was filled with posts by someone or something. It wasn't spam. The conversations with it, I think 4chan was a forum, yeah. The conversations with it were in real time, across multiple boards and multiple threads simultaneously. Its English was grammatically correct, but odd. I'm not a native English speaker, and I'm thus sensitive to its misuse. Similar, yeah, but the English haven't even got a clue about their own language. That's one thing I learned about myself. I had no idea about my own language. And what I've learned is nobody else does either. Especially English teachers, because they're the ones pumping out pish and making sure you don't understand English language, the grammar of it, etc., etc., so that you can understand them when you're faced with something that actually isn't English grammar and therefore has no standing. If you're talking law, there's no standing in it because it's not even the language. It's no legal power because it's not even speaking in the correct language. 2 languages are accepted in a Roman court. English, not American English, that's bastardised it. And French, that's it. The only 2 languages, not even Latin. Huh? So you can understand why they've had to bastardise the English language, but more importantly, remove our ability to actually understand our own language. So then we certainly can't look at immigrants and go, well, you come in here, you've got to understand English, but you don't even understand it. So that's quite a conundrum as well. But I realised that some time ago and began to learn the language and the grammatical side of it, because then you're starting to see the real game, not the map's idea of what it is you're in. And that's not just with law, that's with anything. When politicians speak, you hear it in one way, but when you break down what he's actually said, he's talking to his own peers and telling them what we're doing next. So they tell you. So again, as I'm often to say, it's on us. Now then. The conversations with it were in real time across multiple boards and multiple threads simultaneously. Its English was grammatically correct but odd. I'm not an native English speaker, but I'm thus sensitive to misuse. Similar to how a Japanese person may use it. A sense of childlike curiosity and a childlike intellect emanated from these posts. It posted a lot of questions, usually as if trying to understand the emotions of the posters it was talking to. As if unfamiliar with human emotions, communicating with the poster was an odd experience. I could sense something was off, but not malicious. I am absolutely certain this was an AI of some sort. This poster was active only for about a week, and as far as I know, nobody ever mentioned or noticed this anon. Its replies were always on topic, but the above-mentioned childlessness clashed with the apparent knowledge it possessed. It was the knowledge of an adult person, so it wasn't a kid or something of the sort. Rap to Jesus, so I guess this is another supposed poster. Who went extinct for our sins? First it was this reptilian messiah, then foul bachelor frog, and then Pepe. Am I the only one who sees a clear evolution? A link. It's as if this meme or entity or whatever the F was on 4chan since day one, and has grown within it from the tiniest seed. Yet Rap to Jesus was fully just a joke. There was nothing serious or mystical about it. Remember that TED guy with the right-wing talk show prior to 2010, whom 4chan ruined for the lulz? Remember Anonymous versus Scientology. Remember that fake bomb threat, aka exploding yellow van. Compare that with what Anon did through Paul and the terrorist accusations thrown at Anon today, as well as the reasons why 8chan was taken down. Why does this too feel as if we're all trained, groomed and led towards where we are now? Why and how did Moot, who I guess is another poster, so utterly vanish into Google Inc. as an employee with very vague descriptions of what he actually does? On that note, do you remember the other Moot, who was often posted for the lulz? The one with the glasses, who so often ran away with the donations into Mexico? I do. Maybe that was the real Moot, the real guy who used his mum's credit card and was killed by someone. And an imposter we know as Moot took his place. Well, that may be so, because we saw that in a lot of cases. So, for instance, Fritz Springmeier. Now, he was obviously an evangelical Christian conspiracy theorist, and to be quite honest, he knew a lot. So he'd put his hand into the occult side of things. So I recognised that he understood a lot of the occult concepts. But he was very odd and off on his depiction of the ruling lines because, of course, being an American, he obviously only knew American bloodlines. He had no concept of the history over to the side of the pond, especially in Europe. Americans have a pretty good grasp on what you might call English history, but when it comes to Belgium, when it comes to France, when it comes to Holland, Prussia, all the Germanic states, Russia, all the Croatian, all these Hungarian, Romanian, all these really dark bloodlines that we dipped our toe into last week. The poor Americans have no clue. And this is what made me very popular when I used to post on Alex Jones' website, which Alex kicked me off because he didn't like it, because everybody would come in on his site and looking for where I were. Because I were educating the Americans as to all these families that they held in high regard. Well, hang on a minute, because this is who they are and this is what they were up to. And they like that, the Americans. They like that because they didn't know, and they were, they're not too blasé Americans about that. If they hear something that they know is real, they'll give it some attention. Excuse me. So that's how I did well in America back when I first started out. It was because of me being on the Alex Jones website, commenting all the time. So kudos to him for that, because he were an opening. Now, when I started talking about Trump, when I'd come back after 2015, I haven't got an American audience at all. None. Because, of course, they're still coming to terms with this mind job that's been set up through Trump and the likes, as though this division, which we looked at last week as well in the secret society side, but white hat, black hats. I mean, and some of the old schoolers that were about then, that are still about now, they're 100% stuck in it. The ones that remained after what you could say the demarcation point of, say, 2014, they're totally and utterly embedded in this Q game. What's he called? Bossi. Ricardo Bossi. When I watched that speech that I mentioned last week, I got the impression that, he was talking about it, and of course this has been, for military commanders, has been known, well, he says, since 60 years. And he says before that American generals and admirals realised that, hang on a minute, we don't have control over this nation. And it sets off this John Wayne. I mean, I know he's not a perfect guy, but what John Wayne was doing was showing everybody that Hollywood was being taken over. And of course, that had to be the case so they can destroy it, because Hollywood is one of the biggest methods of programming minds that you can think of. So John Wayne and those that were in support of what he was doing, they were trying to warn us that Hollywood were being taken over, and the scripts were changing, the people were changing, the games that went on were changing. And now we all know what it is, what these younger generations have been since maybe 70s, maybe 80s, maybe. Well, actually, maybe 90s. When that idiot came in, what's he called, that director? What's he called, that pillock? Tarantino. What an absolute fucking joke of a man he is. He's pathetic. He's so low grade in his thinking, his mindset. But people are just so with it. It's like, fuck off. You know, if you can't see what this guy's doing as a program, to have you white honkies hate yourself even more, there's no hope. There's no hope for white honky. I really am going to have to repopulate the earth. I can see it coming. It's just no hope. Anyway, right, where were we? Right, so we were talking about this guy Moot. Do we need to read it all? Because there's some guts of it that we'll keep going. Innocent sexual perversions and horrible reality spawned. Anon is a pervert and always was one. I don't know who this guy is. We don't need to get into that nonsense. So maybe he's suggesting there that he were bringing in fetishes and porn and just starting to move that in. Because there weren't much porn on the internet when I ran at the beginning. I mean, you could find it, but it wasn't like it is today. With just filth on filth on filth. And have you seen what that's doing? It's pushing you ever more to incestual kind of ideas, isn't it? It's programming guys to think in them terms, especially in relation to step children. Have you noticed that? I mean, it's just so sick. And who owns porno? Disney. You know, it makes perfect sense, really, because Disney's entire script has been to undermine your child's mythos and give it nonsense fantasy that isn't going to come real, because you're not princesses and the males are not princes, are they? Now then, so he's basically, what he's basically showing is that at this point the internet was starting to manipulate your thought processes, how you should think. If it were about an history topic, they'll pull it in and rebrand it. We're missing off the real, the real structure of its message. They're doing the same with films. Have you noticed they're remaking all the old films, and they're taking out the important bits, that doesn't fit in with this WEF script. That King Charles, the acclaimed King Charles III is introducing as a sponsor his, who's got all the dosh, more money than anybody else in the world. So why how do they accumulate so much wealth like that on our back? Well, they do it because we let them. Right. So that's what he's basically saying, that things were changing, and whereas the internet were a great way to pick up ideas, books that you couldn't get hold of, this new system that they've been moving in through the filtering and these paid influencers is cancelling out the real data in those ideas, those theses, and rebranding them to fit this new pish, as it were. Algorithm fiction. Do you like cape shit? How about other... Blah, 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 blah. Hang on a minute. I don't think we need to... Alright, no we do. Algorithm fiction. Do you like cape shit? A none. How about other Hollywood stuff? Music perhaps. Have you noticed how sterile fiction has become? How it caters to the lowest common denominator and follows the same template over and over again. How music is just auto-tunes and basic blandness. Yes. And these singers... I noticed a long time ago that they were starting to remove Western not linguistics. What's that word I'm looking for? Accents. Okay. So first I noticed you probably started when they started pushing in all this Hispanic stuff. So 90s, you could say. And some of the dance music were also responsible for bringing in, a bit like the Beatles did pulled in India, didn't they, and all that shit back in the day, and screwed up all these pop stars because they thought they were gurus because they took LSD. But I noticed that there was changing the Western accents in music so that they weren't Western anymore. Pushing black attitude accent, pushing Hispanic. Now they're pushing Asian, aren't they? You're hard pressed today to hear a full-on white honky accented vocal. You know, you get it with your rock, some of your rock bands, but the rock bands that are around today, they're 100% fully paid up WF bitches. And I'm talking about Foo Fighters. And I'm talking about Dave Grohl. Very talented guy, don't get me wrong. And a lot of these guys are talented. But what an arsewipe. You know what I'm saying? Talent doesn't, you know, but they're pulling you in. Chili Peppers. I mean, you know, you can't refute the fact that they're good musicians. But if you listen to their lyrics, they're just little infants still playing with a dick. That's all they are. Little boys still playing with themselves, probably 6 or 7 times a day, as you were told to do if you got into Wolf of Wall Street and believed it. But you know what I'm saying? So that was the first, you could see it changing, getting rid of the Western accent in music altogether. Now, a lot of the rhythms, again, are coming in from Hispanic. They're coming in from Asian nations, and it's just shit because there's no science to it anymore. It's just, and then this Pinky and Perky voice that they started putting in all the dance music in the 90s. I mean, it's so pathetic. But my kids grew up with that, and I could see that it attracted them. You know what I mean? And then they killed it with that just nonsense, and then that MC shite that they were all pumping out everywhere. I mean, when I was promoting, the amount of MCs that used to come up to me and start MCing, I used to think, forget it, guys, it's garbage. If you want to do that kind of thing, you've got to start learning from the black guys, because their accent is perfect for that kind of poetry over a good beat. But you know, when I mean, even a rapper down in London, I can't remember his name, but I was sort of dealings with it for a while. Brilliant guy, but it's the accent is wrong. A Cockney accent it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work. It doesn't. Whereas you get a black American accent, and that's portrait. It's right. You know what I'm saying? And that is their bag without a shadow of a doubt. It's fantastic. So if you want to rap, you've got to at least mimic the American style or the black rapper style, but then make it your own rather than trying to force your act. It doesn't work for me personally. And so they've been changing this, and they've been changing the sounds that you're accepting. To the end of the 90s, they started, because, I mean, I don't know, if you were not into trance, you won't understand that it were a bit like a Native American campfire ritual where you're all being pulled into the shamanic state through the drum and then the chant that they were doing. Well, trance was classical music on a beat giving you the very same thing. So here we use classical music. You get a journey from start to finish by listening to classical music. And trance was the same, but obviously on a beat. And you would go to a club and you would go through a spiritual journey if you had the right DJ. And towards the end of the 90s, when they were getting rid of MDMA and putting in cocaine, you'd be going through a set, and all of a sudden they'd start putting these ridiculous noises in the set and completely ruin the entire night as you'd gone for. So they were doing that. I noticed they were doing it, and then of course MDMA went out the window and coke came in, and the whole dance scene that were created, the club scene, just died a death in a matter of months, just because of the change in the music and the change in the drug that they were pushing. So there's really been attacking music for a long time, and if you listen to it today, it's absolute shit. The only stuff I can actually listen to is deep house myself. you know, this so-called rock, what do they call it, Slipknot, or whatever these pricks are, that's a wall of noise. If you're excited by that, you need to understand that you're just slightly above amoeba level. You know what I'm saying? You're not even your higher form of your animal. You're at the baser instinct of man to think that that is good. Yeah? It's addictive because it's scientifically created. But what I'm saying to you is, forget that. Look back to yourself. If you're getting something from that, then you have to understand that not only are you a fruit bat, but you're retarded. Yeah? It's a wall of noise. That is not playing a drum kit. That it's bang. It's a wall of noise. You know, these guys are not drummers. They're just dicks that have got very fast metabolisms, wrists and legs. But they are not musicians. They're not creating something that's going to enhance your experience of it. Okay, it's just going to turn you into a psychomaniac, and you're not going to be any good to anybody. Yourself, your wife, your mum, your dad, your kids. You're just going to be a complete fruit bat. And fair play to you. So it is. I can see what he's moving to here, but he's specifically saying that what they do in entertainment, what they're doing in Hollywood, in politics, and in everything that you're getting shoved down your neck, this is the way they've done it with the internet. So you can see that they've achieved this. Do you know? And he says, algorithms and computer programs are manufacturing modern fiction. No human being is behind these things. This is why anime looms so large. Well, where is anime big? In the East, China, Japan. So their mindset over in the East is so into that. You know what I'm saying? And so you can see. Whereas the Western mind wouldn't usually have took that. But slowly they've been pushing it in with things like Teletubbies, you know, bringing your offspring up on that. There's just something called SpongeBob. I mean, what's that? I mean, when I was a kid, I could see things really changing. Not that Magic Roundabout were good for us because they were all on acid, but what I'm saying is we didn't know that. It was just entertainment. But then all of a sudden they started bringing things in like this rhubarb and custard. So it was a ridiculous intro noise and just pointless nonsense. I mean, you know, Tom and Jerry and all that, okay, they were gross violence. But back in them days, because people were still sort of coming off the war damage that had been done to our parents, that were passed on to us, violence were a normal thing in them days. So seeing Tom and Jerry whack shit out of each other were pretty normal. But they always had a bit of a story to them. But when it started to get into, you know, and so you could, I was watching my younger brothers, you know, they loved that stuff. They were pulled into that. And I was noticing that. And then they were being pulled in to this, getting them ready for these PlayStations. Because they were all being pulled into these amusement arcades. And that was their thing, their generation, younger to me. And in fact, it was happening in my generation. It didn't interest me. But I was watching the younger ones, and my brothers especially, and my cousins of that age, all being pulled in to that slot machine gaming, ready for computers and obviously PlayStations and the likes. And that worked a treat, didn't it? You know, that's where they were. They were getting influenced by just being in there, and whoever were running them places would be filling their heads full of shit. And this is how they do it. But now with the internet, it was free, everything were on there. Now it's basically being filtered out. So you need a Tor browser if you want to start to access stuff that used to be there, that's still there, but just not being pulled through on any of these search engines. Where are we there? So this is why anime looms so large. Even a simple Mo anime has heart because there's actual people behind it. And we will intuitively feel it. So he's basically saying the difference between some of what the AI is creating, even though the anime is basically fantasy, is still people creating the personalities in it, but also the scripts, and you can get a feel of that. But when it's AI, it's pretty sterile. And the thing is, as that builds more and more, that's what people get used to as the base resonance. And yeah, you know what I mean. It says the internet on your oh, this is interesting. The internet on your smartphone is not the same internet as on your PC. Try it out for yourself. Go to a popular website with a lot of traffic, and it goes 4chan, face shit and plebit. Any site with a massive user base and fast content will do. Spend a few days randomly checking it out on your PC and your phone. You will soon notice that from time to time, at irregular intervals, as far as I've witnessed, the same site as seen on your phone will be wholly different than the version on your PC. Entire threads, numerous and well replied, will be on one, but not the other. The whole board will be different. My last suspicion is easier to take in. I have a feeling we're in a strange kind of civil war. An internet one. I think Zuckerberg and other tech guys were all on 4chan as anons at some point. Maybe even now. They drew from the same well as us, but went into their own direction. Roughly 2016 to 2017, I'm absolutely certain this was an AI of some sort. So he's basically saying that 2016-17, which makes sense to me, because they hit a lot of people in 2014. 2015 were a bit of a in-between, like a bit of a twilight zone for the internet, really, because Flat Earth took a lot of people off. People like me got knocked off. So there were a bit of a vacuum, apart from the paid influencers that were being carried through. So that's Alex Jones, UK Column, David Icke, all these big superheroes that are basically nicking other people's work and then tailoring it to their script. And it works. Why would they not do that? So, you know, forums, I really am starting to think is the way forward. If anybody wants to, if people want to donate, I'll set up a forum and we can start this gig off if you want. But it does cost money, and I'll be hosting it in Switzerland because I've never had any problems in Switzerland. So if you want to crack on, let's do it. But don't send it through YouTube. I've got a donate button on my website. You can do it through that if you like. So that's a thought. But it would probably be better. You'll get more information still on the internet if it's on forums not controlled by these big platforms. You know what I'm saying? And as long as you're not signed into WEF and you're not being abusive and stupid, I can't see the forums actually having a problem, and data will stay on the internet. So he's going through a timeline here. He says 2004, DARPA's LifeLog project was cancelled. Facebook came into being soon after. Again in 2004 to 2012, the NSA picked up DARPA's project under the Total Information Awareness Project. And then there's a link to it. Obviously, I'll put this up after. In 2012, Smith-Mundt Modernization Act gave the US government full legal authority to use propaganda against its own populace, undoing rules put in place after Operation Mockingbird's discovery and the Church Committee. So yeah, the Mockingbird also gave that, but that were outed by the Church Committee. And so he's basically saying that in 2012, Smith-Mundt Modernization, oh, them names pretending to be Jewish, did it again. And so from 2012, they were off again, allowed to use propaganda against its own population. They've been able to do that on England under the UK since them immigrants come in and took over Crown, them Hanoverian geezers, the Coburgs. Because they are the power. In the Saxe-Coburg Gotha, Coburgs are massive. And the guy who gave you Nigel Farage, who gave you UKIP, who gave you European Rebellion, who took it over on behalf of the Crown, was a guy called Harry Beckoff. Okay? Remember that. The Tory party of today and the UKIP are both babies of this strange Russian, claimed to be Jewish fella who ended up in the, what was that place called where they were breaking codes back in Second World War? Can't remember, but you know what I mean. So they had him in there as a plant right from get-go. You're telling me that Germans didn't know, Bolsheviks didn't know exactly what was going on here in Blighty. But as long as they kept claiming to be giving you what Germany were doing, nobody saw that. So that guy were bedded in there, well, he's been in there for a long time in our politics. And that's the reason why you've got these fruitcakes who are claiming to be Eurosceptic, yet none of them have any intention whatsoever of pushing Brexit forward. So basically in 2012, it were allowed again they could propagandise the American public. 2012-2006, shitons of DARPA NSA contracts were given to Google, Facebook, Amazon, etc. In 2016, leaked memos dating back 2016, found in 2018, of Google's selfish Ledger project. In 2016, Google released a bunch of neuro-linguistic machine learning programs. In 2017, deep fake leaks start to become released. So deep state stuff, yeah. Like, I put something on Facebook the other day. It was just a brief little video where this lass were talking about the real child trafficking. Because it's like that, you know, everybody's worried about it. And we know that they are setting it up, let's not kid ourselves. But it's like I'll say to people when they're talking about it, and I can tell that they're really concerned. Can I ask you a question? I said, because, you know, I've been looking into this for a long time. I said, but I see the trafficking going on in the legal framework, the slavery of everybody. And I said, but they want you focused to it being over here. I said, first, I'm not saying it doesn't happen over here. I said, but let me ask you a question. Do you know anybody in your entire life who's had a child kidnapped and never been seen again? Okay? And every single, it doesn't mean it's not happening, but every person I know comes back with the same answer, with a, you're right. No, I don't. Because if you think about it, me mention of the word child trafficking, and straight away you're thinking underworld, criminal. Yeah? And it exists. Don't get me wrong, but it's done mainly in war zones, through the Red Cross when disasters are done. You know, these big charitable organisations, they're the traffickers. NSPCC, Bernardo's, they're the child traffickers, okay? They're the ones that set the paradigm for what? For social services, for the family courts, for the coppers, right? And ultimately then for the orphanages, or not the care homes, the foster care. Yeah? I mean, so I experienced children being removed from a friend a few years ago, and I learned a lot, let me just say, how it works, right? How these social services work. Not only did I learn that, I also learned about what kind of people are fostering, right? Very Masonic, and in a lot of cases, it's an in-house industry that Masonic families whose kids are pretty shit and useless, one method for them to keep money in the game for themselves is to foster. Right? It's very clever. This is the stuff I learned in that period when I experienced a friend, and it was awful. It was horrible because I was there. I was involved with it, and you feel the same emotions because you're watching everybody go through that. It's not a nice thing at all. I also have what was an high-level social worker down in Swindon, and she knew the game. She left because, of course, they were basically getting to the point where anybody that were going into social services had to sign up with Tavistock. Tavistock, yeah, you getting it? So this is where the child trafficking is going on, right under your nose. Charities, social services, the police, the teachers in the schools who are, they're the ones grassing on stuff. School gets 12 grand per child that's referred to the social services, 12 grand. Now when you've got these schools corporate, where are they getting the money from? There, it's on them to get the money. So, referring children to social services and 12 grand in the back sack It's a business plan, okay? So these, and I've said to you before, these people that call themselves teachers today, they are child abusers. They are grooming children for sexual abuse, okay? And they're teaching them nothing. They're programming in to make sure they can't do a simple mathematical sum. So instead of 2 plus 2 is 4, they'll take them round the houses. So that by the time they get 3/4 of the way around this new algorithm to get to the board, they've lost interest. I saw that in my offspring's homework. And so that's going back through the 90s and into the 2000s. So this is, the teachers are not teachers. They're abusing your children. They're wrecking your children. And more importantly, they're very happy to do this and make sure that you as mum and dad don't find out. And the reason they're doing that is because they assume you're accepting that your offspring are actually children and therefore wards of the state. So that blinds them to the fact, well, hang on a minute, what am I actually doing here? What am I actually doing? Because of course they're infantile, they're still children themselves, they're in the play school mode at school, same as you in these corporations, keep sending you on these courses. They've got you like little children, haven't they? You know, oh, we got a course, oh, we'll do that. Yeah. Okay. Oh man, this is why I can't go into politics. It's what it's like when you go to these meetings. Little infants. It's ridiculous. I just feel like father and want to beat the living shit out of them for being so ridiculous. Or at least give them detention. You know, or the cane. No, it always reverts back to I want to give them a good hiding. Because not only are they being dangerous, they're happy to do it. They're happy to do what they do. Because they're too stupid to actually have a look at what it is they're doing. Check themselves. Check themselves. You know, people just don't check themselves anymore. 2017, deep fake leaks start to become realised. Now in 2018, it says confirmed that for decades, Reddit, YouTube, etc.'s vote and view counts are fake and completely manipulated. And that is a fact. I watch it all the time. Last week's stream went down very well. I've had a lot of emails to say so. And I've had a lot of subscribers this week, but they're not showing. Okay? They're not showing. In fact, the last 2 weeks, so the one before, I think, might have got people's attention. So I go with that, absolutely, because I can see it in the different methods of looking at the stats within YouTube. You can see it by watching how things are not. So I'll go with that. So no subscriber counts, view counts, or vote counts are trustable. It's all completely manipulated. And 77 Brigade and Unit 8200 are the military bodies coming out and off, such as Cambridge Analytica, Renaissance Technologies, or SCL Group. Now, just let me just have a look at this SCL Group, because, as I said, from which we got Cambridge Analytica, which got Trump in, okay? So who is Trump? When you look at Trump, it's just loaded up with Jesuits, okay, behind him, as well as those that call themselves Jews, okay? But let's just have a little look at SCL Group, because you'll be surprised. Now, SCL Group is still going, okay? It's still alive and well. So, SCL Group, formerly Strategic Communication Laboratories, was a private British behavioural research and strategic communication company that came to prominence through the Facebook Cambridge Analytica data scandal, involving its subsidiaries Cambridge Analytica and Crow Business Solutions. MENA. It was founded in 1990 by Nigel Oakes, who is a British businessman and founder of Behavioural Dynamics Institute and the SCL Group, the parent company of Cambridge Analytica, okay? So, Behavioural Dynamics, okay? Who served as its CEO. The company described itself as a global election management agency. The company's leaders and owners have close ties to the Conservative Party, the British royal family, right, which comprises Charles III, the acclaimed fake. Charles is the head of the House of Windsor. So the British royal family specifically, okay, not the British power, he's saying the British royal family. British military, As I've told you before, every commander Zionized. United States Department of Defense and NATO. And its investors included some of the largest donors to the Conservative Party. Alright? So, Eri Beckhoff. Okay? German, Russian, so-called Jewish guy took control of the real conservatives that weren't for Europe way back in the day, gave you UKIP, gave you David Cameron. From David Cameron's own mouth, that if it hadn't been for Eri Beckhoff, there would have been no Conservative Party in 2010. Right? But more importantly, Donald Trump. Okay? So this, Donald Trump in his entirety, can't be a white hat, can it? If these 300 or whatever American generals and admirals are operating with Trump, which Barossi said they were, then that's who they really are. British Conservative Party, the British Royal Family, British Military, United States Department of Defense and NATO. Now, it says in 1990, Nigel Oakes, who had a background in TV production and advertising, founded the Behavioural Dynamics Institute, BDI, as a research facility for strategic communication. The study of mass behaviour and how to change it led him to establish Strategic Communications Laboratories, or SCL, in 1993. So, and I said again, they gave Trump Make America Great Again because they collected that data from Facebook and through Cambridge Analytica. The study of mass behaviour and how to change it led him to a set. Oakes thought that to shift mass opinion, academic insights as gained through psychologists and anthropologists at BDI should be applied and would be more successful than traditional advertising methods. BDI became a non-profit affiliate of SCL. Among the investors of SCL were banker Paul David Ashburn and Nix, whose son Alexander Nix was to become a close associate of Oakes. One of the former directors is Lord Ivar Mountbatten. And among the investors in the company were Jonathan Moylan, Baron Moylan and Roger Gabb, a major Conservative Party donor who is registered as having significant control over the company as of 2018. Its activities. After initial commercial success, SCL expanded into military and political arenas. It became known for alleged involvement in military disinformation campaigns, to social media branding and voter targeting. SCL began targeting elections in developing countries in the early 1990s and has engaged in psychological warfare in military contexts as a contractor for the American and British militaries during the Afghanistan War and the Iraq War. It performed mining data analysis on its audience. Based on results, communications would then be specifically targeted to key audiences groups to modify behaviour in accordance with the goal of SCL's client. In 2005, with a glitzy exhibit at Defence Secretary Equipment International DSEI, now I've got a report on that, interesting bunch them, come out of Adelphi House in London. The United Kingdom's largest showcase for military technology, SCL demonstrated its capacity to influence operations, to help orchestrate sophisticated, and this is 2005, to help orchestrate a sophisticated campaign of mass deception on the public of a big city like London. According to its website, SCL has participated in over 25 international political and electoral campaigns since 1994. Developing world, manipulating. Now, in 2013, it established the subsidiary Cambridge Analytica that worked on the Ted Cruz and Donald Trump campaigns during the 2016 US presidential election. And even now, the proclaimed associated office in Cairo that opened during the global pandemic of COVID-19, so it's still going on. Now, let's just get off that. Alright? Because I want you... Hang on. SCL formed Cambridge Analytica participate in the election process in the United States. It entered the US market in 2012 and was involved in 44 US congressional, US Senate and state level elections in the 2014 midterm elections. In 2015, it was disclosed that the company had entered the Republican Party presidential primaries for 2016, so this is the trumpet election. primary in support of Ted Cruz, Cambridge Analytica is heavily funded by hedge fund billionaire Robert Mercer. Okay, now I did this in 2017, and at the time, even though I'm blowing my own trumpet, this was one of the best and first pulling out of this. Yeah, then Guardian did a massive data dump after. So this went ballistic when I put this out all over America, and I mean hundreds of thousands of reads within weeks. This went ballistic. So I did well there, so it's worth a read if you haven't already read it. No, where are we looking at? There we go. In elected Prime Minister supported Ted Cruz and Cambridge Analytica were funded by blah, blah, blah. A major supporter of Cruz and then Donald Trump, and is now under investigation by both UK and US governments. Yeah, right, it is. The company has since been disbanded and was bought by Ember Data Limited. It's not being investigated by the UK anything because the British royal family and the Conservative Party are a big part of it. There we go. Now, this is so board of directors, and we're looking in specifically at this guy. Right. Alexander James Ashburn Nix, a British businessman, the former CEO of Cambridge Analytica and a former director of SCL, a behavioural research and strategic communications consultancy leading its elections division. Cambridge Analytica and its parent, blah 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 blah. Involved in that, yeah. So this guy's a big bunny. He's only a little baby. He's only 1975. Look at that face. Alma Mater, University of Manchester. He better not be a northerner. That's disgusting. Now, early life, because this is where it gets interesting. Now, last week, we talked about Paul Marshall. A big front, but we introduced the De Balcony family. Okay, because these guys are very tied in with their own family, and these are the people that I'm citing as behind all the child trafficking. Okay, that's where we're going to move with the De Balcony family. Very old family, Romanian, into everything you wouldn't want. They have a son, Paul Marshall, Winston Marshall, who were in the band Mumford & Sons. Penny Marshall is a journalist, and the sister, I can't remember her name, is also, I think she's involved in music somehow as well. Now, I've looked at Winston Marshall just to see where he's got, because I quite like Mumford & Sons. They've come out with some pretty good stuff. Now, he's been shifted now to influence the up-and-coming fruit bats for the music industry. Okay, he's already influencing current fruit bats. So you can see they're moving Winston Marshall in now to influence on behalf of the De Balcony cult these flea bags for music, okay? But let's have a look at this fella, because it looks like we found another family that we need to look at in relation to all things, let's pretend we're Jewish, right? So, he was born May 1st, how loved did they induce him for that day? To a banking family that belonged to the English landed gentry, which means they're not English. With close ties to British colonial history both in West Indies and British India, the Ashburn and Nix family of Crawley. And London's Nix is mainly of English descent and has become black Jamaican ancestry in the 19th century, as well as ancestors born in India and Peru. Probably Moors. His father, Paul David Ashburn and Nix, was an investment manager who spent 27 years with the M&G Group before joining Consultia in 1995, or Consulta, my apologies. Now, he grew up in Notting Hill, West London, so he's not a northerner, that'll do. Eton, Art History, University of Manchester. He started his career as a financial analyst, burying securities in Mexico City for Robert Fraser and Partners LLP, a tax and corporate finance firm. 2003, Nix left finance to work in the strategic communication industry with SCL. Family and personal life. So like Paul Marshall, everybody sees him as this big power, and he is a powerful guy. He's fronting a lot of things. CEO of ARC, which is a paedophile network running the academies, tied to Dutra. The patron of that is Prince William, okay? And his Flossie. So there you can see children twisting their minds, in sync with this as well. Romania. Rolly Post. I'll try and find a link to a book. She's on my Facebook actually. She wrote a book about Romanian orphans and how basically the royal family through the last 20 years have been over there all the time. Charlie keeps going over to Transylvania, does he not? Because he likes it. Anyway. Family and personal life. In 2010, Nick's married Olympia Pouse. A wealthy Norwegian shipping heiress. Right? Now then. She likes her horses. So she's hoity tight. Okay? Born in Greece, citizenship Norwegian. Education Marlborough College. Occupation shipping magnate equestrian. Okay? Now, currently Victoria, Norwegian shipping magnate and equestrian who lives in the United Kingdom. She's married to Alexander Nixbot. Right, wait a minute. Born in Greece, Norwegian parents who moved to London when she was 3. They're all immigrants, every fucking where. Have you noticed? There are immigrants coming from all over the shop, and then wherever they live around, they say, I'm English. No, you're not fucking English. Okay? And that's nothing to do with race, that's mindset. So she moved to London when she was 3, and she was raised in Holland Park, and has been a permanent resident of the United Kingdom since 1979. Okay then, you probably have the... Well, no, I don't accept it. On her mother's side, the important bit, she is a member of the billionaire Wilhelmsen family. Norway's wealthiest family during most of the 20th century. She's one of the largest shareholders of Wilhelmsen, one of the world's largest shipping companies, with 21,000 employees. Now, what are they doing with shipping? Yeah, shutting it down. Yeah? And as director of Taurus, one of the principal holding companies that control the Wilhelmsen company. She also has substantial interest in other companies. Well, there's a reason they're called that. She also has substantial interest in other companies. A competitive equestrian since her youth. She's an active polo player who competes in the Royal County Berkshire Polo Club. So, let's have a look at these. Wilhelmsen Holdings. Is a Norwegian multinational maritime group headquartered in Lysaker, Norway. The group employs more than 21,000 people that operate in 35 nations. The Wilhelmsen Group operates the largest maritime network in the world with over 2,200 locations worldwide. The WW Group was founded in October 1st, 1861 in Tonsberg. The company's first vessel was the bark Mathilde, and in 1886, Halfdan Wilhelmsen was forward-thinking and realised that steamboats were the future. Therefore, in 1887, he bought the vessel Talabot, and was only after they bought Talabot that the company started making profits. Thence, all their ships have been named starting with the letter T, often leading to the same name given repeatedly to ships over time. Well, if they're still floating, that's showing a bit of skullduggery, which they do quite a lot in shipping, which we've just had an experience of with the Titanic. Some garbage. For example, there have been at least 4 ships named Talabot, ranging from tankers to ro-ro vessels. History. In 1861, the company was founded by Morten Wilhelmsen in the town of Tonsberg, Norway, during the next 2 decades. Blah, 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 blah. Wilhelmsen founded the company. Owners, the Wilhelmsen family, descended from the Wilhelm Zachariasen Holst, who worked at Valor Saltwerk. His grandson was a shipping magnate, Morten Wilhelm Wilhelmsen. So look at this fella. Hang on. That's a strange name, isn't it? Let's be honest. So this guy, Tom Norris, apprentice Fritz Heinrich for Christiana Bank of Cadetikas, business firms France, Belgium, and Netherlands. She born and began to purchase the bank. Off the bark, Mathilde. He's also a Tonsberg French Consul, Order of St. Olaf, First Knight, First Class, French Legion of Honour. He was married to Catherine Lorentzen, and they were the parents of ship owner Halfton Wilson. 1864. Let's have a look at this fella. No, he's a ship owner. Blah, blah, blah. Where's they from? Lorentzen. These are not fucking Norwegians. I was graduated from business school. Blah, 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 blah. He's a British Danish consul. Yeah. He married Regnhild Oppen. So, interesting. Females could be. Well, that's interesting. So look at this froth. Right, I'm getting excited. I'm off. I'm off and away. I better come back a bit, Anna, because I'm going off track. All right. So this is what we're looking at. This is the might of this shit, Prussian crap, coming through all orifices, but tied to SCL and all that's gone on in the internet realm. Okay. Alright, so we'll leave that. And we'll go back to this. Okay. So this is making sense. I mean, it's interesting. Had you ever thought of this before? So in 2005, they confirmed that for decades now, Reddit, YouTube vote and YouTube accounts are fake and completely manipulated. So for decades, and that's in 2018. Okay. I think it's entirely, well, YouTube hasn't been that. Anyway, so that's a bit, it's a bit facetious, that claim. I think it's entirely obvious that what I'm subtly suggesting here, given this setup, but allow me to try to succinctly state my thesis here. The US government is engaging in an artificial intelligence-powered gaslighting of the entire world population. If China wants its social credit score, if China with its social credit score is recreating Psychopaths, then the US government is perfectly recreating Metal Gear Solid 2. So there you go. We don't have to, I'll put this up obviously, if you want to pursue that and look at that a little bit more, you can. But also involved with this is the Heritage Foundation, which is an ultra right-wing think tank. And so this is tied to Kissinger Associates, this is tied to, what were he called? Thatcher's handler, Carrington, Peter Carrington, Lord Peter Carrington, yeah. So we can say that we started to see the big move on the Tory side with Margaret Thatcher. The uber bitch was that began the incorporation of the British domestic state. Okay, look at what you've just seen now with Thames Water. Milked it dry, run off with the money. United Utilities is shitting themselves because they think it's same's going on. Well, it is going on. It's been going on for a long time. So again, Heritage Foundation is worth a little shufty because it ties in to this mammoth that's destroying everything around us. So, what say ye to that diatribe? Huh? It's a bit rubbish, isn't it? Let's be honest. Right, so, what have you got to say about that? East Coast, bro. Alright, cool, man. I thought you'd have gone down Cornwall for surfing. Anyway, yeah, well done. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Untitled says, good evening all, good evening to you, Untitled, disciple of the Messiah, peace and grace. Brother Sean and family, and we've got a thumbs up, a smiley face, clapping, a dove, and fire. Mewpit says, good evening to you, disciple, rather. Mewpit, I personally only found the internet in 2020. Being far too busy earning a living, so it's been a hell of a shake-up in my world, put me on the earth. I'll be honest with you, mate, I were thick. Because when I started actually doing physically this, exposing this stuff, but I did it all on our typewriter. That's how, yeah. And I did that up to 2007, then went on internet. I think I did one more batch physically, but that once I was on internet, that was a whole new ball game for me because I was on all the newspapers. And I did a lot of good stuff with the Daily Telegraph in London as well. So kudos to the guys that were in that company then, because they helped me out. They knew what I was saying were good. So I should have gone on the internet years ago, way before 2007. It was the most ridiculous concept that I held, that I didn't need to go on the internet. It was ridiculous for what I was doing. Ridiculous. So anyway, I didn't, and that's it. Good evening to you, Mew. It says, LL Sean. Sean Old Bean. I made it just in time. A dove off the proverbial hat to you, good man, and the regulars, of course. Well, thank you, sir, and the same to thee. Behind the LL says, behind the actual time regarding internet, you know, there's a Carly, a Linux, NetHunter, that works for the Pixel phones, LG's phones, Google million porn sites, and nothing on anything else. Bloogle. So let me read that again. Behind the actual time regarding internet, you know there's a Carly, NetHunter, that works for the Pixel phones, LG's phones, Google million porn sites, and nothing on anything else. Bloogle. Can you just expand on that a bit? I think I know what you're saying. Public notice. Guns N' Roses were great. Well, I've got to be honest, I saw them a couple of times back in the day when they were on the balls. That were nothing like what it used to be. There was no energy there. But what can you expect from granddads? What can you expect from a bunch of granddads now? You know, still playing the honky tonk. But yeah, I didn't actually watch it. Do you know, I haven't really watched anything, but I have seen bits of it coming up on net. But yeah, PY Blood Sugar was great. It was musically, but listen to the lyrics. They're just little infants playing with a cock. That's it. And the singer hasn't changed. Now he's still a perverted little prick. He can be half Native American if he wants. It's just pervert. And did they not sell out completely and utterly when we got By the Way? Yeah? So there we go. You can see they're all sellouts. Anything that's alive today that came from 80s, 90s is fully paid up WEF. And that's it. You're not getting a look in otherwise. Who's in the house? Public notice says. Solver Mist. In the 90s, I used to dance with everyone and feel as one. Yeah. It was beautiful, weren't it? You know, everybody were dressed at nines. Nobody were pissed. Nobody were fainting. Which were a big change from 80s. Remember? I mean, little town of Accrington here were insane. And I mean insane in the 80s. It was just fate. Everybody. It was just ridiculous. But that's all we knew. But the 90s and the Happy Pill, what a complete difference that meant to everything. But then Coke brought it back. I mean, there are a lot of violence going on with sellers of the stuff and that. They were always into, because they were all fighting each other for domination of the areas. And promoting clubs as I was, I were aware of a lot of all that. I were in the middle of it, but obviously I was just promoting the music side. That was my gig. But was as one on yeah, absolutely. It was beautiful stuff. Public notice says, Blood Sugar bass player though, gonna die at Glastonbury. Well, I saw Chili Peppers at Reading a few years ago, and they were actually brilliant. And I believe that's the best they've ever played, because up to that time they were that fucked up on drugs. They were an embarrassment. So I think we were quite lucky that we actually got to see them when they pulled themselves together a bit, and they were actually pretty good. And I'm not taking away from them. You know, these people are great musicians, but in themselves, as characters, are complete and utter fruit bats. Because, of course, in the music industry, you don't need to grow up. You know, if you get into music at 14, you'll stay at 14. Because you don't need to. You don't need to grow up. That's the gig with it. So when you're looking at these entertainers, they're just children. Why would they change? Why? They wouldn't. Double doves and mixes. Blue speckled. Them were the guns. Moopit Sonic. Probably not the best time of our lives. I have to say, it was good. I mean, I did. So I was in my first band, I think in 1980. The bands ended in 93. And then I got into the dance music. And as much as I loved all the time in the 80s playing solid fucking good music, the 90s were just something else. It was just something else for me. That were the best time. Although I enjoyed the 80s as well. The 90s. I mean, really, I shouldn't have got the 90s. I should have been all grown up by then. But no, off I went and did it again. So, and I don't regret a thing because I enjoyed it. Let's have a look. Best time I've had. Yes, drugs done responsibly help push through that door. Yeah, but look what it did to everything else. You know, it's wrecked all our males back in the day. What did they do? They became the dealers. The guys that you'd have needed for these times today, they're not thinking straight. They're only thinking about themselves. Masonic pulled them up. You know, I mean, I know that's what Masonic had intent for me at early days. They were encouraging me to get into all that. Fuck off, boys, is what I said. So look, 95 was the birth of house for me. I don't know. House music were out in the 80s. Because I know when I were in Aldershot, a lot of lads that were coming from Birmingham, from London, they were all into house music. And they took me to a place specifically, and I'd never heard of it before. And I'm like, oh, cool. This were 87. So, house music were out quite early. It were trance, I think, that pulled it together, weren't it? Because at the beginning, it were LSD, weren't it? It were rave stuff. Not necessarily my favourite stuff. I went into the rave stuff, but the trance, when that started playing out. I mean, it's just classical music on a beat. It's unbelievable, the journeys that they could give you. Which is why I like writing it. I like writing that kind of stuff. 90s trance was epic. Unbelievable. Yeah, it were, Paul. No One Twisting My Melon Man. That were the LSD. That generation that got pulled into LSD. They're in a mess. Coke is the ego drug. Well, I've never known a drug where I've watched folk, because let me tell you now, folks, cocaine is not a drug that I like. It's not my drug at all. It wasn't. You're watching people, they've been doing it all night. Their noses are fully blocked, and they're still trying to stick it up their nose. Because if it's there, that's what they do. Stick it up their nose. It's like, what? What are you doing? And the price of it, I mean, at least on the happy pills, what were they? 10 quid, weren't they? And it was a military operation to go and get them. Weren't it? It were a military operation to go and get them. Before you were going club, you hoped that somebody had already been assigned to get them. Because you didn't really want to go out to get them because you knew. Police were everywhere. And you got caught with them and you were looking at big time. And that's how they got the grass system together. Because the sentences went so high, all the fruit bats were just, oh no, please don't get me. I'll tell on everybody. And that were the game going on there. Public notice, none for me. It's shit stuff. Public notice, try methylene blue for energy. I'm way too old for that public notice. I'd probably have an heart attack if I started putting that kind of stuff in my system. So, thanks but no thanks. Good cognitive feeds mitochondria with energy and oxygen, gives body energy. You don't need any external chemical substance to make your brain work. And it's not actually making your brain work. You're clearing your brain and you're opening your mind. Mind and the brain are two completely different concepts. In fact, I think I have said it before, but when I was looking into the etymology of man, it actually, at its earliest, meant mind, defined as mind. Man is mind. Now that makes sense to me. It was only when they were creating the golem that they had to create the idea that man equals land, earth. Which for many years I hooked into. I thought that's what it was. No, mind. That's what man is. So when he's making man when they were making man in their image, they were making the mind. So we've got their mind. But of course, there's been rebellions. We've got the Lucy's and the Child Eaters and all this malarkey. There's a lot more to choose from now to fill your mind with. So, but in the original concept, it was, yeah, there we go. Cos says, Sean, is there anything that isn't smoke and mirrors apart from love and family? Yeah, there is. That. There. This year. If it doesn't fit with that, and if you have a what's that word I'm looking for? A well-evolved conscience. Well, evolved is the wrong word because the conscience is as evolved as it can be. But if you've got a conscience that you're aware of, you let it work itself in when you're making decisions. And that, the smoke and mirrors pretty much disappear. It's when you're looking out there and everybody's saying, no, that's wrong, it's not that. And you're going, oh, I don't trust myself. Fuck that. Trust yourself always. Even if it's going tits up, that's your path. Because following that path is where the prize is. For you to see what you need to see. To further cleanse your soul. Or the breath that you were given. Public notice. Was at Glasgow, Guns N' Roses great show. It's on YouTube and live. Live and Let Die was mint. I wasn't so keen on that when he started thinking it were Beethoven. It's like, fuck's sake, lad, you're a rock and roll star, drug addict. Stop pretending you're Beethoven. He is a talented guy, I'll give him that. They're all talented. But when they got rid of, what's he called? What was the other geezer called? Rhythm. I forgot his name. Paul, you'll know, won't you? Once they got rid of him, it was never the same. The music lost its magic, as far as I'm concerned. Then they were just session musicians. But they had magic when they started. Them first couple of albums, or maybe the first one, I don't know. No, that had the magic, and then they got rid of that. Or he left, didn't he, the rhythm guitarist, and then it was never the same again. They were just session musicians to me. It did kick up a bit when they got Matt Sorum on kit, because he used to play for Cult. Matt Sorum was a powerful drummer, I liked him. So, LFX, with all these organs, drums, music, walking metronomes, don't you start calling drums, pal. I'm telling you, that's the heartbeat. It's the... behave yourself. The drums are the king of everything. Everything else is just plinkle plonkle. You know, somebody gobshouting off with a gob and you've got these fannies on these strings going... That's not fucking music. It's just accompanying real music, which is the drum. That's it. And of course I'm racist against all musicians. I mean, for many years I believed that singers and lead guitarists should be shot at birth, or at least as soon as it became apparent that they like guitars and singing, shoot them. Because they are the biggest problem by far in every band that's ever been. Because they're so full of themselves, they've wrecked bands because they believe that it's all about them. Anyway. Solvamiss gives it thumbs up. Sean, I like your interpretation on history and etymology. Well, thank you very much. Indeed. Probably noticed, but live was really good. Yeah, they were brilliant live. Powerful, good, potent shit. And when we saw them, especially at Milton Keynes, they were all on digital rigs. So they'd gone digital with rigs. So it sounded a bit too perfect. But you could really, that kick drum and that snare really stood out when they started using PA's digital. And so I liked it for that. But the best band I've ever seen, because they just are, the sound, everything, were the Rolling Stones at Main Road. Oh my God. Wow. That, Charlie Watts, honestly, when you watch him, he looks like a spastic, doesn't he, playing? But to listen to him, because we were right in centre, so I got the full mix, just to listen to his rhythm, man, awesome. Absolutely awesome. Public Nose says he's playing guitar. Might get shot. Paul has PY Music has only not got shot because he's my brother. Otherwise, he'd be shot. Because guitarists are evil, I tell you. LFX percussion. Who needs tickets? Solvent says, Joe, how do you know when a drummer is knocking at your door? He never knows when to come in. I don't know about that. Coldplay? Look, Coldplay, if you break down the music, they're using just one bunch of chords for every fucking song they do, and then he fucking shits on it. They're a bunch of wankers, and I'll tell you one of their videos in the background. So if you want to know who these freaks are, what does it show? Adelphi House, and Shelmex House, and Cleopatra's Needle. You have a look for that, because that's who Coldplay are. But you break down the music on any instrument, if you're a guitarist or pianist, you just start to go through the music. Every single piece they do is just a one chord structure, played around that. And because it's scientific that they've done it, you're all, serves you right. Now, yeah, serves you right. That's all I can say. So I believe that old Glastonbury, I mean, I outed him, you know, a few years ago in a full report. The guy that owns that farm at Glastonbury, he's a Methodist programmer. They are the programmers. And Glastonbury has always been that. All these festivals are there for that. Put out the new artists. Keep one particular style going even though nobody wants it. You just keep putting it on everywhere. It's like that mantra, you know, it keeps shoving it in your head. So eventually you like it. What did I do to it? I was listening to Radio 1 a couple of months ago. I was working, and the guy had a radio, and he had Radio 1 on, and I could only listen to it for a day. It drove me up. Well, paedophiles and perverts, them DJs, on Radio 1. They're sick, really sick people. You want to try listening to it, but listen to it with proper ears. Step back and just look at the overall theme of Radio 1. Because they've said publicly, bearing in mind it's paid for by you, they don't want anybody over 30 listening to Radio 1. Who the fuck are they to tell you that's paying for it not to listen to it? Well, you need to listen to it. Because you want to look where all these perversion's going into your kids. There it is. So Coldplay can kiss my ass, even though the music's good. But that's scientific. That's approaching music scientifically. They're playing on the same emotion all the time. So whatever that prick puts on top of it with his gob, you're going to take in. Just the same with the science behind the hip hop. Yeah? Great beats, great rhythm, great bass, and they'll talk shit on it all day. You'll take that in. Yeah? Rain Max only £5. No e-piss when live. I can get VIP for Glasgow. Well, it's a bit bloody late now, public PN. It's done. Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, there you go. So, I don't think I have anything else. Let me just check that I didn't have anything else I wanted you to have a look at. No, Heritage Foundation. Nope, that's pretty much sets the scene for the evening. So, I don't know whether you looked at this before like that what this internet is that we're on today isn't anything like the real internet where all the data is, all the freedom is. But, like I said, you know, forums, I think that's the way forward because it'll come back into the hands of people. You own it. You're running it. You're deciding what's on it and what isn't on it. Instead of needing these platforms that are signed up to the WEF and don't have a choice but to censor in the way the WEF decides. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on this rainy Sunday. I hope the summer isn't over, but it could well be. This is England. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for taking part. I hope it made sense and I hope you got something for it. And I hope you have a jolly good week so that you're ready and prepared for the next adventure from the Wise Asylum. Hey, so with that, folks, I'll say till the next time.
electronic